Hi, everyone. Welcome to Fresh Movement Live. Fresh Fridays, in fact. And today I am joined by a very special guest in the studio. And it's not Liam. I know COVID and lockdown has been taking some people by surprise because of, the way we've been growing our facial hair. It's not Liam, is it? Let's just clarify that, Matt.
No, it's absolutely not Liam, although the facial hair is here. It's me. It's Matt Davies. Lovely to be with you, Gareth. How are you?
It is Matt Davies. It is. I'm great. I'm great. Thanks, mate. And thanks for being our first guest, our first official guest, anyway, on Fresh Fridays, which we'll come into in a short second. Anybody who's watching, be sure to like, comment, and share the stream if you can, because as we say, sharing is caring on this show. We are going live across a few different channels, so wherever you may be, get involved in the comments, because myself and Matt today are going to uncover the big old meaty topic of storytelling in brand. That is the subject of today, and it's all about providing you guys with that value and giving you essentially all these skills and tips which will help you if you're thinking about telling a brand story, or if you're curious, or if you're already on that path. Cool. So Matt, before we jump into it, thank you for joining us. I know it's been a bit of a choppy day for both of us, myself included. Before we get into what we're going to talk about today, I just want to let the guys know how we met. It's been quite a while now, hasn't it, since we last physically met? That was the last time we saw each other.
Yeah, I suppose it was. It was some time ago. When was it now? Was it back end of last year, wasn't it? Or a bit before then?
It was. Yeah, it was. It was in London. And I remember we was on a stream and we did have a handshake. And the last words were, we were going to get you back on the stream. And you're a man of your word, so thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you here.
Don't be silly. It's an absolute honor. And well, I don't really quite kind of know what I've got myself into, to be honest. You said come back on the stream. I'm back on the stream, but I'm sure the listeners are kind of keen to know what is Fresh Fridays. What is this all about? What have I signed up to today, Gareth?
I love the fact you said yes without actually asking what Fresh Fridays are. So yeah, I mean, this is news for a lot of people, to be fair. We have gone live a couple of times on this channel, and Fresh Fridays was something that just stuck because we usually go live on a Friday. But Fresh Fridays is going to be a consistent thing, so every single week, unless something major happens, but we're going to try and do this every single week. It's about providing the beautiful people who are watching with thought-provoking ideas, and that can be from anywhere really, but really we're going to try and focus on the world of brand marketing, but literally anywhere, because Liam and I, who isn't here with us today, unfortunately, he is alive, ladies and gents, and he's well. Liam and I's had a lot of thought, and it was the whole reason we started Fresh Movement. We really wanted to change the way brands communicate and the way businesses communicate. And the more people we speak to about this subject, the more it becomes relevant that this topic needs to be discussed.
Absolutely.
So that's essentially it. So every week we will be joined by a special guest. And I've got to say, Matt, we have started on a high, because we wanted to get you on this show from last time we met. So thanks for joining again.
My pleasure. Should we see how it goes first before you make statements like that? But no, it's an absolute honor. It's an absolute honor to be here. I think one of the things that was great and might be worth mentioning to the folks who are listening in. We met at Marty Neumeier's Level C training, didn't we? And I was helping Marty out at that time. And one thing that stuck with me was you were kind of doing some live streaming at the time, and I just enjoyed our interview, which I don't often enjoy being interviewed and grilled by people, but for some reason, Gareth, it was an enjoyable experience. So I'm back for more fun, and I'm sure we'll have some fun today. So thanks for having me.
We will. We've got some people with us already. Chris Smith, welcome to the stream. Anx, welcome to the stream. If you are enjoying what you've seen so far, do not hesitate to smash that like button, as we like to say, and get it shared out far and wide, because this is the first of many streams that we're going to be hosting. The other thing as well, which I do want to make aware to yourself, as well as everybody watching, Matt, we've got a bit of a structure. We have got a bit of a structure going on. So it's not just going to be chat. We've also got some other little things that it will provide insight to our guest and our viewers, but it's also going to provide a little bit of entertainment as well, we hope. On
my behalf or on your behalf, this is what I'd like to know.
It's just going to be fun for the viewers. That's what we're going to hope to achieve.
I may not be back again for interview 3 at this rate. Great. Yeah. No, let's do it. What we got lined up, or can you not tell me until the time?
No, I'll let everyone know. So the way we're going to do it, now, one of these things can't happen today because our chief snack reviewer at Fresh Movement is Mr. Liam Kingswell, and he's not with us, as we've discussed. He's still alive. I keep saying that. So snack review is one, because we're quite fond of a good snack here at Fresh Movement. Right. Have you got a favourite snack, Matt?
Do you know what I've been getting really into at the moment? And it probably sounds pretty gross if you've not tried it, but it's called. Is it called biltong? You know that, like, it's like beef. And it's like dried. It's like, I think it's South African. And there's this particular, basically, because of the shops and everything, I was on Amazon, like, searching for stuff about quite a few weeks ago. And I was like, oh, look, I could buy a whole box of this stuff. It's going to be meat. And this was the time when you couldn't get any food. So I just like ordered a massive box of this stuff, just out of kind of pure survival, instincts. And it's come. And it's beautiful. It's like chili flavored. So I'm really into that as a snack right now. So maybe you could review that next time. But or maybe this could be the review for this time. Who knows?
We are kindred spirits, me and you, Matt. I've got to say, not only are we big brand nerds, but I've got something I want to unveil. I'm a beef jerky maker. I make beef jerky.
Maker? You make
I'm a maker.
Oh man, that's next level.
I'm going to send you some. I will. Me and my brother, we create Snack of Champions. Mr. Andrew Lee's just me and my brother have been making beef jerky for some time, and I'm going to send you some. I promise it is legit. It is the good stuff. So I'll send you some of that.
Mate, that's brilliant. I'm a big fan of Jamaica, actually, and I love eating beef jerky. It's their kind of go-to.
Similar thing, aren't they? The beef jerky and biltong, but it's just the way it's dried and cured. It's slightly different.
You would know. No, I just eat it.
We don't need Liam, do we? We don't need him on this stream. We've got snack review done, so that's been ticked off. Snack review done. Easy, mate. Easy. And
that's what I like to do. I like to help exceed expectations.
Definitely with that one, mate. That came straight out, and I was just like, oh my god, that's right up my street. Bit of beef.
Good.
Alongside it, now I know you are drinking a beverage. I have got a beverage as well, so we do a little beverage review as well for the guests. What is it you're drinking, and is it a drink of choice?
It's I know it's like late in the day, but basically I'm doing a lot of work all over the place, and I've actually got to do some work when I jump off this stream. I'm diving on a funnily enough, a cultural kind of thing for one of my clients. I found myself, Gareth, like hosting. I'm a brand and culture consultant, right? And when you get into the side of culture, which is kind of like taking the brand strategy and infusing it into the business, what that means is you start kind of getting involved creatively with HR people and internal comms people. And what that led to with this one particular client that I've got a long-term contract with is that this week's Mental Health Week, right? Mental Health Awareness Week. And I came up with loads of ideas that we could do to help build the brand into the culture using Mental Health Awareness Week to add some value, right? And they were like, Matt, we want you to host this. So I kind of ended up, and this week I've ended up hosting with one of the leadership team from that business, one kind of little event a day for an hour. And then today it all kind of ends with a massive pub quiz. So I haven't I haven't got alcohol with me because I don't want to be completely, gaga for that. So I've got a coffee instead. So it is a black coffee. It's from my Nespresso machine. Oof. And it is my go-to. It gives me people say, Matt, you've got so much energy. And I say, it's kind of the coffee. It's not really me. So that's a little secret for you there. Yeah. Trick of the trade. Just drink coffee all day long. You'll be fine. How about you? What have you got?
Well, I'm about to unveil it, and I do feel a little embarrassed now because I'm definitely going to be drinking for both of us on this stream. It's a bit extreme, I've got to say. But it's a new find. It is a new find. It is a Western Gold, and I got this from Lidl. And to be honest, it's surprisingly smooth. It's surprisingly smooth. And
when you say a Western Gold, what exactly is a Western Gold?
So it's bourbon whiskey.
Bourbon whiskey, yeah.
Yeah, bourbon whiskey from Kentucky and distilled in the USA. And it's, I honestly picked this up with no expectations on it because I do like my extensive high-end whiskey sometimes when I can afford it. But I saw it and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give you a go. And I've got to say, I have not been disappointed. I have not been disappointed in that.
Great tip. I'm also a fan of whiskey, actually, Gareth. So there's something else we've got in common. What is going on? Jerky, biltong, whiskey.
I'm getting excited. I'm getting excited for this conversation. We're going to hit it off, mate. We are going to hit it off. So I've got a bit of a cheers moment for you there, Matt.
Cheers,
there you
mate.
go. Chin chin. To coffee and whiskey. You can combine the two.
Cheers, mate.
Surprisingly smooth. Anybody watching, what are you drinking right now? Is it too early for a straight bourbon? I say never. Never. But maybe if you've got work after this, I don't, thankfully. I'm going to enjoy my Friday. Sweet. All right, I'll just have a look in the comments. So we've got a few people. Scott Pilkington, welcome to the stream, my man. Snack of Champions. I love that comment from Andrew Lee. Let's have a look on YouTube. Got a few people in there. I think Liam, who is in chat, is a little bit surprised by the drink review today. It's only a review. It's only a small one, mate. Don't worry. It's not going to get too crazy. Just loosens the old palate, I find.
So it's going to get gradually more slurred, the questions, as we go through this interview or whatever it is, conversation. Yeah. Potentially.
If
I sort of sit here, just mouth a gasp, you'll know what's happened. The whiskey is kicked in, and or the bourbon's kicked in, and you'll know to repeat slower. But yeah, I'm sure we'll be fine. We've got this. This will be great.
We've got this. Okay, Matt. So we did jump in straight away because you are also my co-host as well today. You are the guest and co-host. So it's a little bit of a different setup to what we usually have. But we know you can handle it, Matt. We know you're a good talker. So that's why we put you in the hot seat. Let me just start with the intro because it's usually where we'd start with most guests. So we mentioned earlier, myself, me and you met at Marty Neumeier's Level C branding masterclass, of which you did advise us to go on. And it was just such an amazing event. And I'm so happy that you did. And you and I both worked with Marty as well as a result. So that was a great move. But just to give yourself a bit of an intro, I know you're an author. You're also a brand strategist, but in your own words, just to the guys watching, how do you describe yourself to people?
So I mean, how do you answer that question? I fix problems. I fix business problems. How do I fix business problems? I use brand strategy to help fix them. And I think the biggest problem that businesses have today is the complexity of the situation that they find themselves in, right? It's complicated speaking to customers. It's complicated leading companies, particularly as companies grow and get bigger. And so one of the major issues with that complication is this idea of alignment, right? So where are we all headed? And if you don't have something simple, something clear, something obvious, and something that other people can kind of get hold of, a big idea that they can all kind of rally behind, what happens is everybody runs off in their own direction, right? And I've seen so many businesses that kind of splinter off, and Larry takes his department over there and pushes out into Asia, and Jeremy takes his department over there, and Jane and Jenny, they're doing something over there, and chaos erupts. And after a few years, businesses look completely weird, like Frankenstein, because they've kind of bolted bits and bobs onto them. So basically what I do is I use brand almost like a Trojan horse, right? And I go in and I work usually directly with CEOs to help them, in effect, get their people pointing in the same direction. And usually that takes two kind of stages. One is to help them define their brand. And the second thing is then to help them execute that sort of strategic vision for the brand. So in a nutshell, I help solve business problems. I help leaders build businesses that inspire them and therefore inspire other people. So that's it. That's it, really. I'm a bloke with a beard, bit of energy, and I help people with brand strategy.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important thing, and as we said earlier when we were doing the intro to Fresh Movement, it's a very similar ambition we've got for this show. Is we want to communicate with people in the C-suite, CEOs, and business owners and entrepreneurs alike to change that thinking. Like, brand is one of them big, meaty subjects which for a long time was kind of tucked away. It was kind of something that people didn't feel, I don't know if they didn't feel confident about discussing it, or the kind of the perception of brand was wrong. But what you just described is so appealing to us, and it's exactly what we believe in. And to have people like you, championing that change, it's just great. It's really good.
Is it worth, Gareth? Because obviously I'm sure a lot of people maybe understand what we understand a brand is, but some may have tuned in, not heard from us before. I always think perhaps one of the best places to start on a conversation like this is to define brand, right?
Yeah.
So the way I define brand is, and it's in my book, Storyatogy, which we'll no doubt mention as we go through, which is, but you got to start with a definition. The definition for me is it's the meaning people attach to you and your offer. That's what your brand is, the meaning people attach to you. It's not your logo. It's not a set of fonts. It's not a load of colors. That comes into it, but it's kind of that's just the surface. That's just the veneer. Your brand is really the inner purpose, the inner guts of why you exist, and it's what actually other people perceive about you. It's your reputation. Yeah. And that when you understand that, you suddenly realize that, as say you're running a business and you kind of you get this idea, like, hang on, it's not really about us. It's about what the customer believes. It's in their hearts. It's in their minds. And what you kind of realize is that you don't kind of own the brand. The brand is owned in the hearts and minds of your audience. So all you can do is to begin the process of branding, which is, I define that as the attempt to manage that meaning, right? Yeah. And the first step to manage the meaning is to define what do we want people to attach, what concepts do we want them to attach to us as a brand, and then it gives you a set of goals, as it were, to walk towards, to build your business so that you can become meaningful to your audience. It also, of course, means you've got to define your audience, and so you've got to really kind of think about who you exist to serve. So there's lots of kind of strategic questions if you want to do branding properly that you need to think about. The big ones are, why do we exist beyond making money? Who do we exist to serve? And why does it matter? Or why are we different? These are the big questions, and they're so easy to say, but so tough for people to answer. And unless you've got those defined and everybody aligned behind them, it's very hard to run a business because, say you've got 20 people in your leadership team, or even if you've got 4 people in your leadership team, if everybody has a different view to those 4 questions, they're going to be running off and doing different things to get to where they think the brand should be. And the truth is you've got to have a joined up bit of thinking that needs to cascade down all the way through a business. What's your definition of brand, Gareth? Have you got one?
It's highly aligned. I mean, you and I have both had the pleasure of working with Marty, I suppose, and that's definitely who inspired my brand journey. I think before before I read Marty's book, a designer previously, I've also worked as a trainer as well, and I've worked within large corporate companies. And I think, like you said earlier, a lot of people think they know the answer to a lot of these questions, but when you actually dig deeper and actually ask them, right, can you explain it to me in a short sentence?
Pithy
it's
sentence,
very difficult. But yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, the gut feeling, it can't be said any simpler. The gut feeling of a customer that has about your product or service, it just lives there, I'd say. I mean, it explains so much. And like you said, when you go a little bit deeper then and then pick apart, well, what does a gut feeling actually mean? That means, what does somebody actually think about you? What the feelings that resonate within them when they think of your company? It's the best explanation. And we did a little discussion around brand value quite recently on a couple of calls, and that's where it gets really interesting. And it's very easy to explain to anyone brand value, because a really popular example that we often use is something like Red Bull or Coca Cola. Red Bull is just a brand. Like there's obviously there's the drink, but when you look at everything else that's connected to Red Bull, it's that extreme feeling that you get when you think about Red Bull. Everything they do is extreme.
It stands for some.
Yeah, it does. And Coca Cola is another great example, because it's actually in Marty's book as well. If you extract the badge and the meaning that people associate with Coca Cola, there's actually, what is it? It's a fizzy carbonated sugary drink that there's many different ones. But on a summer's day, when you see that van, the ice cream van coming over, you just want the sweet taste of a Coca Cola. You don't want the others. That's me personally. And
no,
it's all brand, isn't it? It's all brand.
It is. It's all brand, and the value of brand is huge. I mean, a lot of people say, how do you demonstrate the value of brand? It's really tricky, but there are some tests that you can do. If with customer research groups, for example, you can take two products, if you like, your product and your competitor's product, take the badges off, right, and then see which one they like. Okay, then put the badges on and see if that changes. You can even do things like really funny things like swap badges around and see if their perception changes. And you can ask questions like, how much money do you think this product would be? And you slap a Mercedes badge on it, and then you slap your badge on it, and you can see, actually, if we built a brand like Mercedes, like this is how much people might be willing to pay for exactly the same product, potentially. So there's things like that you can do in terms of market research, customer research, which demonstrate the value of simply building a solid brand. And obviously that's Mercedes, I'm using a massive example there, but the point stands that if you become known for something, you can really kind of leverage that. But I know you want to get into storytelling at some stage, don't you? I think that
we do. We'll come on to that in a short second. That's why you're here.
Yeah,
that's why
I was getting excited.
We've got a couple of comments. I'm just going to check that are coming in. So Melanie Marshall, welcome to the stream. She is drinking spinach, ginger, and kiwi, which is putting me to shame because I've got a whiskey.
That's an impressive mix there. It's
not
very
just impressive.
Yeah, nice.
Very impressive. And her definition is instinct.
Nice.
About brand. That's a nice definition. Very simple, very effective. Yeah, so we are going to move on. So obviously we've just spoken a little bit around what our definition of brand is. And guys who are watching as well, I'd be really intrigued to know what your definition of brand is. And do you actually care about brand? Like there's some people who say they don't care, they just go for the best product at the best price or the best service at the best price. So I'd love to hear the viewers' opinion on that. Like, are the viewers out there that really don't think that brand matters? Because that's another conversation for a different time. I'm not going to get you started on that one.
Well, just quickly on that, it's a really interesting point, because obviously with some commodity based brands, for sure, like definitely that I've heard that opinion expressed. But what I try and do with my work is try and explain that when you're running a company, your brand isn't just about how you appear to customers, right? Without. It's also important as to how you run the company, how you lead the company within. And so if you understand brand properly, you can pull various levers to kind of help you lead your company forward. Knowing your North Stars, knowing your values, knowing why you exist, kind of really can help you recruit correctly, train correctly, create a culture which helps people thrive, which is authentic, which people enjoy and want to get up in the morning to go and connect with. So I think that's a very important thing. And I think in recent times with the problem that we've had with the COVID outbreak, which we're sort of speaking, if this goes out in the future, that we're right bang in the middle of it right now in lockdown. I think that side of it has also been incredibly, that sort of internal idea of a brand has become very, very important in these times when, your business leaders are having to make unprecedented decisions. The brand principles are enabling them to make those decisions and point back to, well, this is why we're doing this, because we value X, Y, and Z, because our purpose is X. Those brands that don't have that defined, the leader is just doing stuff and people are going, look at him just make, or her making all those decisions. Why are they doing that? And they've got nothing to kind of go, well, guys, like, 2 years ago when we did the brand strategy work, we all agreed this. And so we're making our decisions on the back of this. And that, I think, is a super powerful thing to bear in mind. It's not just external to customers, it's internal, and how you manage your teams, where you go, how you can be at your best, what markets you enter, what products you develop, who you're developing them for. All of those big questions kind of ladder straight back into the brand. So that's why it's super important. I would say, and this is why I love Marty's kind of stuff. He believes that brand thinking needs to be right up there on the C-suite, right up there with the leadership team. And basically what I do is kind of bring that thinking to leadership teams who perhaps don't have it in the room when they meet in the boardroom. They kind of outsource that bit to me. And that's great. But, I think as time goes on, more and more we will see this idea of brand strategy being something that's very, very much in the boardroom, because it's so important to put the customer first and our audiences first, even internal audiences, in everything that we do.
Yeah, it's so important. And how you've just put it there is perfect. Internal and external branding is essential. And it's the same thing, the same hymn sheet. It's the same thing that you read from. It's the same direction. A couple of people just joined. Damien Reed, welcome to the stream, my friend. And he was here earlier. Sorry, Scott was here earlier. All right, cool. So brand we have just discussed, and I think we will use that subject once again because we've literally scratched the surface there, and there's so much more we can discuss on that. But for the people watching, the title of today's stream was around storytelling specifically. So my question to you is, why is storytelling important?
So I'm going to answer that within the context of brand, right? So perhaps it's helpful to give a little bit of background. Once you've got this definition, which I've outlined, that brand is the meaning people attach to you. Marty's one is just as good. I quite like that one that someone said, instinct. These are external to the company, okay? Quite abstract to kind of get to grips with. And if we're trying to manage that meaning, okay, it behoves us to kind of ask the question, well, how do we even create meaning in our minds in the first place as human beings, right? How does this work? If we're trying to manage meaning, it's important that we understand on a very human level how we create meaning. So that's where I came at this kind of question: how do we best create meaning? And when you do your research, when you look around and you read the psychology, I'm not a psychologist, but I know enough to be dangerous, if you know what I mean. Like I've read a lot. And when you kind of, just by kind of instinct, when you look at what that they teach us, they basically tell us that the way that we create meaning is through stories, right? If you think about it, Gareth, like you were growing up, as you were growing up, if you can think back that far, right? You would have been told stories which would have helped you create a meaning and an identity about yourself. So, your cultural stories, where the country you grew up, your family stories, the type of people your mum and dad were, Even, storybooks that you used to read, you would have identified with heroes in those stories. And as you kind of continue through life, we continue to tell stories. We all watch Netflix, and we love films, and we read books, and stories are such a human thing. Why are they so important? Well, my answer to that is because stories are all about change. Okay, so in the classic sort of dramatic structure, you have before the change, the beginning, making the change in the middle, and then after the change at the end, beginning, middle, end. But it's all about a massive change. And in any story, the hero goes through this change. They've got to kill a dragon, they've got to save the planet, whatever it might be. And we cannot help ourselves instinctively connect ourselves with that hero. All the chemicals in our brains are being sparked off as we go through stories, as if we were that hero themselves. And at the end, we kind of realize, well, if they can go through that change, if they can overcome that problem, if they can slay that dragon, so can we in a small way in our lives. And so that's why, as humans, we gravitate towards stories on a real kind of emotional, biological level. Now, all I would say is that in terms of bringing that back round to brand, one of the interesting things that the psychologists tell us is that we all kind of pre-write a story in our minds, okay? So of our own lives. And we kind of create this in our adolescence. And what happens is we see ourselves, as it were, as a hero in our own story. And if in life things align with that self-written story, in terms of where we are at this particular point in our lives, we kind of feel pretty happy. Like, we've got the house, we've got the car, whatever it might be. We've been on that holiday, we've ticked that bucket list of things off. We feel satisfied. But if something in our life doesn't align to that self-written story of where we expect it ourselves to be or expect things to happen, then we feel dissatisfaction, we feel unhappiness. And so what I think is super important once you understand that from a brand perspective is that all brands exist to change something for the customer. I don't care which brand you are there to help the customer overcome something in their story. Now, if you understand that on a really deep level, it means that you know what to say to that customer. You know how to show up for them in their story when they've got that challenge, when they've got that problem, when they need to make that change. And you can kind of show up very simply, very clearly, with a very clear message to them to say, we're going to help you through this. And once you get that, is super powerful. And then obviously once everybody in the business understands that, everyone has that thing. We're here to help single mums who now find themselves in lockdown with 3 children, right? And we're here to help their lives be better, right? Get it? I got it. Now everybody pull towards that. What products do we need? How, let's go and talk to the mums. Let's innovate around that. Let's make sure our messaging's right. We don't scare them off. What do we need to say? How do we need to dress? What photography do we need to use? What marketing do we need to use? What video streams, Gaz, do we need to put on to engage that audience? What will add value to them? How can we help them in their crisis, in their story? And once you get that, you see storytelling becomes super, super powerful to align internally, to connect with clients emotionally, and really to kind of get you through. So I hope that kind of answers the question. We tell stories as brands. Why? Because in effect, they help us to manage the meaning of why we exist and why our audience should care.
Preach, Matt Davies, preach.
You've got me on a hobby horse here, Gareth, I'm afraid. So, yeah.
Honestly, we need to do this again. We're only halfway through, but 3/4 of the way through. But it's so refreshing to hear, to be honest, mate. And I think if we can get this message out, both of our ambitions, Fresh Movement, Matt Davies, are aligned in that. We need to get this to the top table of companies. We need to get it to entrepreneurs who are starting up. We need to get it out there, because the more companies that actually give a shit about what they're doing and give a shit about their customers and actually care, the better the world's going to be. It's as simple as that. And I think what you're saying there is it takes a certain catalyst to start that change. And it takes a certain amount of aligned thought processes to start changing that. And, there's loads of brands out there who have this, and they are the better brands. For sure. 9 times out of 10. They are the brands that you care about. And, that love for your customer transpires.
I don't think any CEO wants to be a meaningless brand, right? I think they all want to build it. They just don't have the language, they don't have the kind of the spark of enthusiasm and the knowledge and the way perhaps that they need to make that happen. But yeah, what I was going to say was in terms of the of that idea of getting into businesses, often it's a maverick CEO, right, who steps out of line. And because often CEOs are talking to boards, and the problem that you've got is that like shareholders, on and they're kind of very interested in the money. But the truth is if you said to anyone, why do you exist? And they said, I exist to make £1 million, right? You think, great, that's good for you, but I don't really care about that. Like, really? So you want me to buy your products so that you can be rich? That's not a reason for being, right? That's appealing to anyone. And within an organization, if you say we exist to hit this, £5 million target, and you're talking to a grad who's about to join, they're not going to bust a gut for you to hit your target. You've got to give them something more. And that's where this idea of the story and the brand comes in, because it kind of allows people to have something to reach for. And what happens, Gaz, when the company doesn't make money, like for example, in these times in COVID, suddenly we can't make any money, right? Okay, so what does that mean then? The purpose of the business, if it's just to make money, there's no purpose to this business. So it might as well close and go home then, mightn't it? We might as well all go home, if that's your only purpose. But if you've got a purpose above and beyond that, a purpose to help single mums, with 3 kids, or to change the world to become more energy efficient, or whatever it might be, a big thing to deploy a piece of knowledge, to overcome a challenge, whatever it might be, suddenly that gives everybody a reason to think beyond money and to think to that human need and that big vision for the brand. And that is the power, I think, of correct brand storytelling. So hopefully that's been helpful.
It certainly has. It certainly has. I keep looking outside because the trees next to my window they're getting a bit feisty right now, and I think it's the energy of the stream, to be fair, mate. I'm just going to ask a quick question, and because I've got another question. I know you need to jump off soon, so I'm conscious of that.
I've got about 10 minutes. It's fine.
The Damien Reed comment of the day, I'd say. So his story is, I am Batman, which that's not the question. There is a question that he did drop in there. So what Damien was asking is, and I think we've kind of answered it, so maybe it's just a short thing to discuss. Why is it that a lot of companies think that branding is a logo and a set of fonts and not the holistic view that we've just discussed?
Yeah, very quickly, I think my answer for that is because it wasn't understood, and people thought that brand was just sort of a marketing thing, like an external thing. And so I think what happened was it was shoved down and given to the marketing department, and then the marketing director shoved it down. And basically what brand has become for a lot of businesses is in effect awareness campaigns for the products and the services. And so it's become a marketing activity and a sort of an ability to attract more customers. Yeah. Just from kind of shoving out content that's targeted for impressions or engagement. And the reality is there's a place for that, but that isn't what brand is. Brand has to sit right at the top, as we've been discussing. So I think, why is that the case? I just think people are lazy. I don't think we've really thought about it as we should do. And we've not used, I think the best days of brand are still to come. Like, I think once we start using these tools, once businesses get it in, and then I work with businesses and they see the results within 6 months, and they're like, this is the business we wanted to build. This is the culture we wanted. These are the customers we wanted. Why? Because you've taken that time and invested the time as a leadership team, usually at the start, and then that started to pay dividends going on. So yeah, that would be my sort of response to that.
There we go. There we go, Damien. Got a few more comments coming in as well. Mel Marshall saying ethical branding with true, honest values always resonate, which I agree with. And also, she said, because they are unevolved and shite. I think that's a message around why our brand's thinking about logos. And Damien's thanked you for your answer as well. Now, I have got one more question that I do want to get answered before we close up the stream. And the question is, what are your top tips for brands, or even the guys watching who might be starting up their own companies, or, you know, entrepreneurs out there? What are your top tips for telling great brand stories?
Okay, so the first tip I would say is, tip number one, is that you need to think of your brand as a character in the customer's story. Because yes, you can have your own origin story, your own.
Sorry, Matt, you're going to have to say that one again. Say that again.
Okay. So tip number one is you need to think of your brand as a character in the customer's story. Okay. So we can tell a story all we like, and obviously that's great, an origin story, the problem that we needed to fix, the big idea, which I think there is a place for brand storytelling from the brand itself. That's true. But the other thing is to really kind of think about, you've got to think about the audience. You've got to think about yourself like a character in their story. And as I said before, if you understand the problem they've got, you know, you'll know how to show up. You know, if you're going to show up in a jovial, jokey kind of way, or if you're going to show up in a very sort of scientific, data-led way, or if you're going to sort of show up in a rebellious way, all of those things come into play. So think of yourself as a character. And my tip there, still on tip number one, is have a look at brand archetypes. Have a look at my website. Google brand archetypes. You'll see what I mean. Yeah. Super powerful to align around a typical character in the story. So number one, think of your brand as a character in the customer's story. Number two, let me think about this. I think really you need to define not just what you stand for, but what you don't stand for. So in my book, you'll find a section in there, section number 4. There's a 6-step process, by the way, if you're thinking of working strategically through something like this. It's called Storyatogy. Number 4 is define the evil. So what I mean by that is define what you hate, define what you don't stand for, define what you're pushing against. Define. There you go. There we go. Define it, because and articulate it. So number 1, audience. Number 2, define your evil. And then I think number 3 is probably going to be a classic one, but that is consistent. And what I mean by that, we all think about that from a graphic design perspective. Yes, graphic design consistency is so important, so you recognize, but I'm talking about the behaviors and the actions of the business. Take your values, for example, sit your team down, get those that focus internally, like your HR people and your internal comms people and your people like that, and then get people who are focused without, like your marketing people and your sales people. Get them all in a room, get your values down the middle of a table, and then say to them, look, how are we demonstrating internally to our people this value? Put that on a post-it note and say the same about customers. How do we actually demonstrate this to customers? And then work your way down. I call that the proof point mapper exercise. Is super important. And you'll find if you've got any gaps that really you need to do some work in those areas to create real experiences, to create real meaningful things internally and externally fused together so that you are true and consistent to what you say. That's it. Brand truth.
Woo! There we go. Brand truth, people. Brand truth. We have just had it. There's your 3 tips. I was going to do a tip at the start, but you just smashed it, mate, with them 3. We are quickly running out of time, Matt, and thank you for sharing them tips. And you did mention your book, Storyatogy. Now, we have got a little bit of a gift. A gift. For the guys watching, not for you, Matt. Your gift's going to be the beef jerky, which will be in the post.
I mean, I just thought it was great that you've got a gift for people. We've
got a gift. It's all about love on this show. It's all about the love. But we need something from the guys who are watching. So if you are watching the stream, you need to chuck a like on it. If you're liking, well, if you're still here, you obviously like it. You wouldn't be hanging around, would you? If this isn't your thing, you should pretty much just just leave.
Unless they've all nodded off.
Yeah. So no, definitely not. If you're liking this, chuck a like on it. It helps us out an awful lot. Please get in the comments and ask us some questions, whether it's live or on demand. Doesn't matter if it's, if we're time traveling right now and this is tomorrow or the day after, you can still join. And the biggest thing that we'd like you to do is share the knowledge and share the wealth and get this message out. So smash that share button. And any of you who have done that, you will win or getting the chance to win a copy of Matt's book, Story Attitude. We have 2 copies to give away. 2 copies. And if it wasn't COVID, I would get them signed. Maybe we can work something out with you, Matt, to get a little signature in there, because we would like that. Yeah. We'd like a little signature. And we will get it out to you. And what we're going to do is over the next week, we will keep an eye on who's liked, commented, and shared. And we will get that out to some of you lucky winners, and we'll announce it on the next stream. So who's won. So that's what we're going to do. Anything else from yourself, Matt, before we close out?
Well, all it was thanks so much for having me on. If anyone wants to connect with me, LinkedIn is kind of my thing. So it's Matt G. Davies after LinkedIn. Look me up. I'd love to connect with you. Any questions on brand strategy, more than happy to sort of throw my hat in the ring with some thoughts. Also on my website, it's Matt G. Davies. Oh no, hang on, it's not. I didn't even know my own website. It's Mr. Matt Davies. .me. Mr. as in MR, mattdavies.me. And on there's loads of free content. I blog regularly, and you can sign up for some free ebooks and stuff. So check it out, and I'd love to connect with you. So thanks for having me on, Gareth. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It has. It's been our pleasure, and hopefully the guys have enjoyed this Fresh Friday. I certainly have, and I've emptied my drink as well, so I'm definitely feeling quite rosy right now. Guys, like we just said, thank you for joining. Our ambition is to go live each and every week with a new guest, and we intend to do that every single Friday around 4 p.m. Now, we have got some exciting guests coming up. One of them we did mention earlier, but just before you leave, Matt, there's one last thing that I need from you. Liam and I are doing a guest list. And what we'd like to know is who's inspired you the most in your career. And if you've got that person's name front of mind, let us know. And we're going to get the guys to jump on Twitter. And I want everyone to @ this person and say, it's time to get fresh. #Fresh Friday to this person.
You know who I'm going to say. Who I'm going to say. The big man himself. So Marty Neumeier has been absolutely inspirational for me. Can we do it to him? Shall we do that?
Is he on Twitter? Is he on Twitter? Yeah. I'm sure he is. So guys, if you're watching, jump onto Twitter @ Marty Neumeier, put let's get fresh, #Fresh Friday. And we will do our best to get him on there. He can't deny it.
Shall I spell it? It's Marty, that's Marty, and then it's Neumeier, Neumeier. And if you drop my name, you'll know it. You'll know it was me. Say blame Matt Davies, and
we've got it in the comments, Liam, as fast as ever. Everyone, spam Marty Neumeier. Say it's time to get fresh. #Fresh Friday, and Matt Davies drop you in it, and we will do our best to get the god of brand, Marty Neumeier, in the next stream. Matt, I know you need to go. Thank you for joining us. Guys, please get involved. Like, comment, and share. And we will see you next week for another Fresh Friday.
Keep it fresh, Gareth. Thank you.
Keep it fresh, mate.